What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video, and in today's video we're going to be talking about a brand new movie coming out later this week on January 27th, and that film is called Condor's Nest. Written and directed by Blattenberger and starring people like Keohane, Arnold, Vosloo, Corinne, Britti, and Al Pagano, this film takes us into the World War II era and is about revenge. So before I get too far into this, I'd like to say a big thanks to those over at Saban Films for sending me over another early screener. Always appreciate the chance to check out one of their movies early and see what I think about it and talk about it here on the channel. And Condor's Nest was one I was rather excited for because I saw Arnold Vosloo, the villain of the Mummy films with Brendan Fraser, was going to be in this film, and I'm just a fan of war films. And this is a war film of sorts, as it takes place a little bit after the war and not so much in the war. It's not as much of an actual war film. It is more just kind of a film that uses the war as a backdrop and instead is more of a drama thriller. I actually, just before filming this yesterday, got to check out an interview with the writer and director that was over on my buddy Dave's channel from Interpreting the Stars. I'll leave a link to it down below because I'll start this off by saying, unfortunately, I wasn't a huge fan of this film, but while I wasn't a huge fan of the film, I did appreciate hearing the passion and some of the behind the scenes stuff from the writer-director in that interview. So again, I'll leave that down below for anybody who's interested in hearing a little bit more about the behind the scenes and everything that went into making this movie what it is. The base premise, without getting into spoilers, is the movie opens and we follow a group of American soldiers who are on their way to bomb a specific location in Germany. Unfortunately, they end up crash landing in German territory, and that's when Arnold Vosloo's character ends up capturing all of them, ends up killing them all, except for one guy played by Keohane. And yeah, this is a film about revenge. We jump 10 years into the future, and this guy is going everywhere trying to find every German he can across South America and anywhere else he can to try to find where this general is, where this guy who killed all his men are. And yeah, you just have yourself a pretty straightforward revenge tale over the course of the film. Not long into the film, he ends up coming into contact with Corinne Britti's character and Al Pagano's character, and then the three of them end up working together to try to find Arnold Vosloo's character and, you know, bring that revenge his way. And I'll leave it at that. I'll leave it short and sweet in terms of the premise of this film, because that's what this movie is all about, and I don't want to give you guys any spoilers as the film hasn't released yet. And so the question is, what did I think about it? Unfortunately, I found myself disconnected from the characters, a little bit bored, and I never really found myself engaged in the overall story. I also never really found myself feeling a sense of stakes when it came to what was going on here, but I do have some positives I want to talk about before we get into all of that. My biggest positives about this film for sure are the elements that made this film feel like a period piece. The costumes, the props, the locations, the vehicles. I think for the most part this film does a really good job of taking you back to that time, and as a fan of period piece films, I think that stuff was done very, very well over the course of the film. Beyond that, for the most part, you have really solid performances that I think drive this movie forward, especially from our lead performance, Keohane, and I really enjoyed Arnold Vosloo in this film as well, though even though he is the big villain of the film, I felt he was kind of underutilized, and I feel like you don't really see a whole lot of him in the middle chunk of the film. It's really just that beginning opener that sets up the vengeance, and the very end where we got to finally see his character. I wish they had done more with his character, to be completely honest, but I did enjoy the performances from him and the rest of the cast for the most part. And as much as I enjoyed that stuff, unfortunately where I just found myself lost was in the script, a lot of the dialogue, and the overall story. I just found myself bored. This was a movie I found myself checking the runtime for multiple times throughout. I never really found myself engaged in the story. I was following, I was seeing where it was going. It felt pretty predictable. There was nothing about it that felt overly exciting, and it just feels like a fairly run-of-the-mill film that takes place in the World War II era. It's nothing that really captivated me, and it's not a film I can really see myself revisiting. Something that took me out throughout the course of the film, unfortunately, were the accents, and one of the things I learned in that interview with the director and writer, Blattenberger, was the fact that there's a lot of actors in this film who had never spoken a word of German that had to learn German dialogue in order to film certain sections sections of this film. And while I find that to be incredibly commendable, and I would say for the most part that stuff really works, there's definitely a lot of moments where I felt like certain actors were speaking in English with an accent on that didn't really sound authentic. Even when they're in Argentina in a certain section of the film, there's certain characters in there that are speaking with a bit of an Argentinian accent or Hispanic accent, and their American accent was coming through a little bit. There was just a couple of moments here and there where I was taken out of the film, I think because of the accent, and it just felt like they were trying to put on an accent, and learning that a lot of the cast wasn't really familiar with some of the dialogue that they were actually going to be reading, it made a little bit of sense to me. But with that said, as I said before, I still enjoyed the performances for the most part, but it is something I felt I needed to mention here in this review. And honestly, I don't have an abundance more to say. The film is pretty straightforward. It's a run-of-the-mill film that takes place in the World War II era. It's not as much of a war film. There is some cool, fun action to be had here, but I just never found myself connected to the characters. I wish this was a movie I could tell you, yeah, this was a great vengeance tale that you really feel satisfaction by the time you get to the end. But for me, I just never did. I found myself just bored throughout and just kind of waiting for the movie to end, and by the time we got to the end, I saw where it was going. There was nothing about it that was overly captivating or exciting. I never felt like I was really even rooting for our main characters that were seeking the vengeance that was definitely owed to them. It just felt like something that just felt very straightforward and run-of-the-mill. One thing I did enjoy about the film, though, is that there's a very straightforward commentary that appears near the latter half of the film that is pretty much just highlighting the fact that in war, both sides of the war are villains in so many different ways, and there's not really anybody in a war situation who is the hero or the good guy when you have to do so many fucked up things in the world of war. So yeah, that was something I enjoyed about this film. I enjoyed the way that it conveyed that message as well, and beyond that, I don't really have an abundance more to say on this one. So a big thanks to you guys for watching this video. I definitely want to hear what you guys have to say. So if you enjoyed this video, first of all, hit that like button and also comment your thoughts. I want to hear some differing opinions on this movie. Did you like it? Did you not like it? Definitely leave some comments down below. If you saw this movie and that's what brought you to this review, welcome, and I hope that you want to hit that subscribe button as I talk about a lot of new movies here on the channel, sometimes like this one, getting to check it out a little bit early. So a big thanks to you guys for watching, and I'll see you in the next one, alright? Bye-bye.